Hey everyone, and welcome back. Hermes Agent is already pretty capable out of the box. But here's the thing. The right skills can completely change what your agent is capable of doing. Instead of just asking Hermes to write code or answer questions, you can give it better web research, persistent code, base memory, marketing knowledge, access to hundreds of tools, video production workflows, and even multi-agent teams. I've gone through 10 skills that are actually useful for real work. Some of them can reduce how much you spend on tokens. Some give Hermes abilities it simply doesn't have by default, and the last few completely change how you structure your agent. So let's go through the 10. And if you only install 3, start with the first 3. Then, Defuddle. First up is Defuddle. And this is one I'd install immediately. The problem is simple. You give your agent a web page and it has to deal with navigation menus, ads, buttons, cookie, banners, sidebars, and a mountain of HTML that has nothing to do with the actual article. Defuddle strips all of that away and turns web pages into clean markdown. That means Hermes gets the useful information without wasting context on website junk, and because less irrelevant content enters the context window. This can also make web research more efficient. It's especially useful if you're constantly asking Hermes to read articles, documentation, research, or online resources. Caveman number 2 is Caveman. And yes, the name is ridiculous, but the idea is actually pretty smart. Caveman is designed to make AI agents use fewer tokens by reducing unnecessary output and, in its newer versions, compressing parts of the context going into the model. The basic philosophy is, why use many tokens when few tokens do trick? And this matters because agent workflows can burn through context surprisingly quickly. Instead of having Hermes explain every little thing in a huge paragraph, Caveman pushes it toward shorter, more efficient communication while keeping the technical details that matter. So if you're running Hermes heavily, this is one of the first skills I'd experiment with Codebase Memory. Now we get to one of my favorites, Codebase Memory MCP. If you're using Hermes for software development, this one can make a massive difference. Instead of repeatedly forcing the agent to search through an entire repository to understand how everything connects, Codebase Memory builds a persistent knowledge graph of the codebase. It can understand things like functions, classes, call chains, routes, and relationships across the project. So when you come back to the same project later, Hermes has a much better way to navigate the structure. And that's particularly useful on large codebases where simply dumping files into context would be incredibly expensive. For Humanizer number 4 is Humanizer. This one is pretty straightforward. It's an agent skill designed to remove common signs of AI-generated writing and make the output sound more natural. So if you're using Hermes to write emails, articles, documentation, social posts, or other content, Humanizer gives you another layer between the raw model output and the final text. It doesn't magically make every sentence perfect, but it can help push the writing away from that obvious AI wrote this feeling. Clop. Agent Reach next is Agent Reach. This one gives your agent a much wider view of the internet. Instead of limiting Hermes to whatever web tools you have configured, Agent Reach is designed to let an agent search and read information across platforms like X, Reddit, YouTube, GitHub, Bilibili, and other sources. That becomes really useful for research. Imagine telling Hermes, find what developers are saying about this tool on GitHub and Reddit. Then check recent discussions on X and summarize the common complaints. That's much more interesting than simply asking a chatbot to search Google. Your agent essentially gets more places to look. Marketing skills, if you're building a business. Number 6 is an easy recommendation, marketing skills. This is a large collection of specialized marketing workflows covering things like SEO, copywriting, conversion optimization analytics, advertising, email, social content, positioning, and more. Instead of asking Hermes, write me a marketing plan, You can give it a set of structured marketing skills that already understand the frameworks and workflows behind the task. And the interesting part is that these skills can work together. For example, you can have your product positioning inform your landing page copy, which then feeds into conversion optimization and marketing campaigns. So Hermes starts behaving less like a generic chatbot and more like a specialized marketing assistant. Composio. Now let's talk about Composio. This is where Hermes can start interacting with a much larger software ecosystem. Composio provides access to Deng Elo10 Plus toolkits, along with authentication, sessions, triggers, and other infrastructure for connecting AI agents to external applications. So instead of Hermes simply telling you, your emails look like this, you can potentially give it the tools required to actually interact with those services. Email, CRMs, project management, calendars, business applications, and much more. This is the difference between an agent that can talk about work and an agent that can actually take action. Why? OpenMontage number 8 is particularly interesting if you create content. OpenMontage turns an AI coding assistant into an agentic video production environment. The project includes production pipelines, tools, and a large collection of agent skills and production knowledge. So instead of treating Hermes as something that only writes code, you can start using an agent to help coordinate parts of the video production process. Research, planning, assets, editing workflows, production tasks. It's basically pushing the idea of an AI agent from assistant toward production studio. So, My Claude Code. Now we're getting into the really interesting stuff. My Claude Code, or OMC, is a multi-agent orchestration system. The basic idea is that instead of having one agent do everything, you can have multiple specialized agents working on different parts of a task. One can plan, another can implement, another can review, another can verify, and the system can coordinate those workers. That's a huge shift because sometimes the best way to make an AI agent better isn't to give one model more instructions. It's to give the task to multiple agents with different responsibilities. ZY, superpowers, and finally, superpowers. This is another one aimed heavily at software development. But the philosophy behind it is important. Superpowers gives coding agents structured development practices around things like planning, testing, debugging, and code review. Instead of jumping straight from build this feature to here's some code. The workflow encourages the agent to understand the problem, create a plan, implement it, test it, and review the result. That sounds simple, but it's incredibly important when you're asking an autonomous agent to modify real software. You don't just want an agent that can write code. You want one that has a process for checking whether the code is actually correct. The takeaway, and that's the bigger pattern across these 10 skills. The first 3 help Hermes become more efficient and better at understanding information and code. The middle group gives it entirely new abilities from writing and marketing to internet research, external tools, and video production. And the final 2 take things even further by turning a single agent into something closer to a team with planning, execution, and verification. You don't need to install all 10. In fact, I wouldn't. Start with the ones that match the work you actually do. If you're doing research, start with Defuddle and Agent Reach. If you're coding, look at Codebase Memory and Superpowers. If you're building a business, marketing skills, and Compose are worth exploring. And if you're trying to push Hermes toward more autonomous workflows, My Claude Code is where things get really interesting. The real power of Hermes isn't just the model underneath it. It's the ecosystem you build around it. Give the agent the right skills, and suddenly you're not just talking to an AI. You're building a system that can actually do the work. If you enjoyed this guide, subscribe for more Hermes Agent tutorials, AI agent workflows, automation, and practical tools you can actually use. And I'll see you in the next one.